Here we are, game 2 of the day. Dewish team taking on CFO. Will they be able to survive longer than 24 minutes and 13 seconds, which was how long they lasted last time? Or will CFO set a new record?
Yeah, absolutely. As we're panning out, we're going to see where everyone's setting up for their level 1, see if we're trying to get some early vision. Very volatile jungle matchup. Last time we saw this jungle matchup, I believe Elise got killed level 2 and then got her blue buff stolen and then killed again level 3. So hopefully we're not going to see that. As we do take a look at runes, it is going to most likely be that poke Varus as we see Hail of Blades. Jhin opting for the fleet footwork, a bit more sustainability, a bit more mobility, lower on the damage. And yeah.
A little interesting, maybe by Jimmy to go for the Conqueror rather than the first strike, but perhaps just thinks that he needs, just more power in this early game, be able to contest Zhao 2 in some of those longer Conqueror trades. It is kind of interesting though, because I think it's a comp that he should be able to proc first strike into pretty consistently. We'll have to see though. No Scion lane swap this time, which was something we saw yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that Conqueror in a team fight, he probably will find it a very easy sort of time ramping that up on a Scion, sort of just brain dead hitting him for those stacks and then going in with a bit more damage. So overall, maybe in a team fight, if you do stack it up, you might have more damage coming from the Conqueror as well as a bit of healing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a nice pickup, I think. Certainly pros and cons to it, but overall, makes sense in this game. Junglers are starting on opposite sides of the map, and I think it's kind of curious by Elise. It looks like she's gone Red Raptors, so most likely wants to do 3 camps in the bot gang. If you're ever going to Raptors second, there's always that possibility that you go down to Krugs and then to bot. Obviously can path into that top side after, but at least, is known for some of those early ganks. Perhaps wants to counter gank the bot side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this pathing, if you do choose to sort of gank this bottom lane, you really have to get something out of it, right? Because Nidalee, one of the fastest clearers sort of in the jungle pool, is going to be able to clear that top side and bot side by the time, look, already onto the bot side as Elise is heading into the river, maybe looking for an invade.
Does have a lot of bot priority, but without the mid pro, I feel like it is a little risky. Perhaps can find Gemini very early on here, and WSL has left the game.
Oh, there we go. We have our pause. Yeah, interesting. Gemini is very low there, so if once WSL does get back into this game, if he does go hunting for Gemini, I think Gemini is going to have to just fall back from his jungle. Maybe look to that top side of Dewish team. You'll probably be able to clear that out. Scion might be able to come harass you, but then lose some waves to the Gwen. Obviously, Gwen having prio in this lane. Interesting to see what will happen after this.
Yeah, I think WSL, he's kind of shown that he's very good, on the likes of the Elise, the Nidalee, stuff like that. So I wonder if here he's just, I don't know, almost like downloaded the path. Like he should know what's happening, right? I feel like maybe can catch Gemini out here and actually end up killing him, but it's hard to say. I think without the mid pro, while having bot pro, I think any play you have to make, he has to be reasonably fast, right? Like he's definitely on a timer. And if this doesn't work out, like you said, can definitely lose a lot of camps on the other side of the map. It's interesting that WSL's on screen here, but just isn't in league, so hopefully we'll be back soon.
Yeah, maybe an issue with the client, who really knows. But it is, last time these champions matched up in the jungle, it was actually WSL on the Nidalee invading the Elise of Sem 9, I believe. And so maybe he just has a really good knack for this matchup. Obviously, we see him here coming into the bot side. If he does take advantage of that, he does look to be in favor of that 1v1. Obviously, bot lanes can collapse quite quickly, as can probably Jace will get there a lot faster. So he is, as you said, on a timer. Does look to be at an advantage off the immediate sort of scruffle they might have. But I think this could even dictate sort of how the game plays out.
Yeah, and I think if he manages to pick up some sort of kill or early pressure here, he really is just the king of both sides of the matchup, right? The fact that you can just leave these champions up and be fine opting into either side of it and have WSL pick up a win out of that is really nice. I think he has definitely looked much, much better on the AP junglers compared to the AD junglers, so I do like that they've continued to go for that. And I think coming back to kind of the rest of the map, we see the Jace getting priority in the mid lane, kind of expected up against the Lee Sin. Lee Sin's not kind of as strong as he used to be, where you could just either wave on cooldown and with the W sustain never really be chunked out. They kind of curbed that after, I think it was, I want to say season 11?
I believe so,
yeah. When Lee Sin was very, very strong. But yeah, it's still getting a little bit of play and still team fights pretty well, right?
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, maybe the thought behind sort of Lee Sin Min might be that once you get the Ravenous Hydra, you can do exactly that again, right? Just you'll immediately clear a wave, can look to go top, can look to go bot, sort of giving power to the jungler, power to the lanes, maybe look for objectives as well. But as we said, both very early game sort of focused teams. And yeah, I do like the Lee Sin pick. It is very interesting, but it's going to be hard to execute. I think a lot harder than the Jace, because the Jace eventually will just sit back, use Shock Blast, get a lot of poking done, as well as the Nidalee and whatnot. So Lee Sin a lot harder to execute, I'd say, than the Jace.
I think as a whole, Dewish team's comp is a little more difficult to execute, I feel like, and I don't know, it's risky again, you know, coming up against CFO, you kind of have to draft early game just to not get obliterated early on, but, you know, at the same time, snowballing into a team that's just known for their early game is very, very difficult, but perhaps they will actually find that opening they need if Gemini can be taken out here by WSL on that invade. Hopefully we will return to the game in due time. Otherwise, it gives people more time to think about where WSL actually is. Perhaps they'll think about the fact that he could be invading on this buff. It's actually something definitely worth thinking about. But here, okay, back in the game.
Oh, we've skipped a little bit, so WSL did start up their blue buff. Gemini just sitting in the bush. Looks like WSL will back out here. Maybe look for a level 3 mid or come around from the other side of blue. He is doing that. So this is not over yet. Might get seen on that trap. Does get seen on the trap. But Gemini quite low on mana as well.
Zhao somehow got mid priority. Perhaps with 2 points. Actually, it's 2 points Q, not E.
And WSL secures the Gromp.
Can he get more?
Oh, gets the flash out of Nautilus. Now that's quite big because Nautilus, he does kind of have an escape with his hook, but it makes it a lot more volatile, especially around this Elise and Leona setup in the bottom lane.
Is Zhao using his priority to good effect? At the same time, though, it Seesaw's back, and now Jimmy will be the one here. And Zhao did give up a fair amount of CS to come to this roam. So I think all things considered, CFO is actually probably ahead after that. But WSL in that jungle matchup finds himself at least staying even in farm for now, as opposed to rapidly falling behind in Italy.
Yeah, definitely. After the end of that, we do see Jimmy in a little bit of hit and farm there, as is the Gwen. Quite a lot of hit up top, which obviously wasn't really impacted by that jungle, other than Gwen knows she can play a bit safer. And here we do see trades going on down in the bottom lane. Not too much to talk about, but we do see Gemini coming down, so the Dewish team have to be very careful here, because landing a Nidalee spear onto either one of them could probably just result in instant death.
Yeah, they're playing quite respectful. Jimmy and out of position.
Looking for the Cocoon. Cocoon will miss, as will Resonating Strike.
WSL is in a bit of trouble. Can probably just back out of this, but WSL not finding that initial gank. Perhaps, well, I don't think it would have been a kill, but perhaps could have been a flash if that Cocoon did connect. And topside, Rest is always, you know, consistently building up these leads for himself, and already finds himself at least a little bit ahead in this 1v1.
Dragon just spawned. We won't see CFO doing it immediately. Blue buff being taken by Gemini, as we see on screen.
Yeah, so actually managing to take away WSL's blue. So WSL, he has to look for something either mid and bot here. I think it's probably too much tempo to start up the Dragon. But perhaps can look on a Slate True's Nautilus, who still doesn't have the flashback up.
We do see Varus recalling.
Ooh, might be spotted. No, it does not step on the trap. The bot
looks like it will just be.
Okay, did proc the trap, so is spotted out there. The ping comes down. And Wise, I think, of CFO's bot lane to recall there while Gemini is on the opposite side of the map. Can he stop the base? Ooh, he actually can. I think Lakunai might be dead here.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to play here, but you do have to be careful, as obviously flying Oyster, as the Silent passive does do a lot of damage. Let's see how it's played out. Nothing yet. We do see Gemini start tanking. Does try flash away. Lakunai gets him to 1 HP. That is tragic, as Zaltu also expands the flash. I mean, sorry, the teleport.
Yeah, wow. Very, very close there from CFO. Gemini lives with just a sliver of HP. And like you said, Zhao investing the flash, as well as Lakunai actually using the flash, was kind of disastrous, right? You were kind of expecting it once he was so low under that tower, but I think Rest picking up that kill as well, probably the best person it could possibly go on.
Yeah, Zaltu comes and looks for the solo queue and will receive it. So that's massive for Dewish team.
It is a good kill, but it definitely doesn't come at no cost, right? It's really weird to be going for some sort of invade like that, and is now falling extremely far behind in the mid matchup.
Absolutely. As Inho looks, does land the root onto Slaytrue, but he will get away, even though he's cocooned on the way out.
Yeah, the buff from the Nautilus Q there, very, very nice. And I think for me, I'm looking now towards the solo laners of CFO to carry this game. Rest has found himself with a kill, and Jimmy and a 20 CS lead from Zhao really just giving up this mid-wave constantly and looking to make plays. I think Jimmy can scale into this game so well. Looks to put it on his back.
Yeah, as WSL is looking again for Jimmy, but Jimmy will just use that speed boost to run away.
And now, a lot of control around this Dragon area, but I think on the side, or honestly both sides, teams that want to snowball early, you're probably better off spending the tempo somewhere else rather than doing it the objective. At the same time, CFO is known for picking up these Dragons early and often. But actually, Gemini just going back to his jungle, so is playing a tempo jungler and wants to still put his camps on cooldown. It's actually funny here, WSL is actually only level 4, with solo laners getting pretty close to level 8 here.
Yeah, both junglers quite sort of low on CS totals, but I guess that's sort of the nature of the jungle matchup and how this early game has sort of developed. As WSL is looking here, bot does have a nice angle here. Slaytrue's flash is back up importantly. Both suns available for Shun. Lands the hook, stunned up for Slaytrue, and it repelled away right next to Nautilus, but might get away. Gemini looks for the spear, will just only land onto Inho.
Does manage to flash out, and WSL very, very low off the back end of that. Perhaps can just throw some spears at them. Jimmy does have priority.
Yeah, WSL has to be really careful here. He's not going to check the bush.
Ooh. Okay, he gets very, very low. Zhao here now.
Yeah, Zhao roaming down, does get caught by the Nidalee spear. Nidalee is completely out of mana. Looks like Zhao. Oh, WSL will pick up the kill, sorry. Curtain call used. One landed onto Jimmy get hits again, and down goes Slaytrue. Pepero picking up a massive kill, a double kill even, and a third flash away from Varus, so massive trade there for Dewish team. You have to like their prospects in this game now.
Wow, Dewish team, they managed to equalize the gold lead after that, and something you can't say often, but Dewish team actually just out-executed CFO in an early game skirmish, and perhaps the early game comp is looking good. Right, they have managed to find leads on all of this bot side. That being said, though, top remains at a pretty significant deficit. So let's look how this starts. I mean, Jimmy, he takes a lot of damage to begin with, but still trades back a fair amount of poke. I think the problem is they just didn't disengage early enough, and Zhao comes down here, full HP. Gemini really hesitates, ends up getting out so late, just going down for free. The rest of CFO, they're trying to escape, but once the curtain call comes through, they're kind of hard to get out, right? And they're all so low, shouldn't he? Very close to taking people out, but just doesn't quite have the damage this early in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And also that first sort of look that WSL had bottom when he almost died, repelled away, they did actually get the Varus cleanse there. So I feel like if he still had the cleanse up, maybe can play a bit more aggressively, possibly get off a bit of damage there, maybe turn it around, but ultimately, the Wish team executed that fantastic, as we do see them initiating onto Slaytrue again. Does get a nice buffer, but will be knocked up by the decimating smash and goes down to Leona.
Poor Slaytrue, man. He put on probably the best mechanical Nautilus performance there I'd ever seen. Actually managed to get out, but unfortunately went down. And that's the Herald picked up by Dewish team, which is very important for this comp. I want us to kind of direct our eyes towards top lane, though. Rest can still carry this game, although the rest of the map is pretty quickly falling apart around him.
Yeah, absolutely. But with a player like Rest, you can never count him out to be able to do so. But this game has huge implications if they do lose, because there are two teams only one sort of win behind them. So losing here and seeing either of those teams who are facing up against each other tonight winning will put them second equal, which you don't want to come third. You don't want to miss out on that playoff bye.
Certainly don't. And I think also it'd be a massive confidence booster for Dewish team, right? Most likely can't get into the playoffs at this point. But you definitely have to kind of feel good for the next split if you can take down a CFO who honestly have been looking pretty good recently. Take a look at the player gold. Rest remains 600 gold ahead of actually the second most fed in the game, which is Pepero, and a huge gold lead over his opponent here. Gemini, though, very, very far behind. You don't want to see Nidalee, at the very bottom of the charts here.
Yeah, absolutely. Either one of these junglers getting behind, they sort of don't offer a whole lot. I mean, I'd rather be behind as at least a Nidalee. You still can kind of cocoon, but it's going to be very hard for Gemini to have any real impact, as we do see Solar Flare used. Catches Gemini just on the side, but not the stun, and it will be disengaged from. But good job to stop that dragon by CFO. From CFO, sorry.
Oh, and it's actually picked up by Dewish team, so CFO, honestly, just, yeah, falling apart a little bit in this early game. Have now kind of leashed the dragon. Is also forced to flash on Gemini, who has not found himself a camp lead whatsoever. For me, it's really on Rest and perhaps even Shun, who's still managed to farm his way into this game to put up a carry performance, because so far, CFO mid-jungle is looking not out of the game completely, but certainly at a deficit that you don't want to be on with these champions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the Rift Herald, which also got picked up by Dewish team, they're probably going to look to use that bottom, I suggest, and inject sort of some extra gold onto the Jhin. I feel like he is probably your late game carry threat. So we'll have to see where that exactly goes. Obviously, it is kind of hard for them to get priority, but bringing a couple members down, Lee Sin likes to roam, Elise loves to gank bot. So I think that's where they're going to head, see some extra gold onto Pepero, so it might end up becoming sort of the Pepero versus Rest show.
Could be. I think it is pretty difficult to play the Jhin. Ooh, Jimin, he's getting low.
Yes, we see Repel used. Nice knockback there, and also the Nautilus ult used as well. Huge shockwave takes WSL extremely low as Nidalee looks for a spear. Threads the needle. That was a beautiful spear onto Inho there.
There is still a lot of poke that can come in from the side of CFO, and really not a lot of sustain from Dewish team. Although they do have very good engage to actually poke this, or sorry, to punish the poke comp for trying to do that. And Rest as well definitely has that split push win condition. So both teams can certainly look for stuff. Let's take a look at the replay. So Jimian, I guess he queued forward? Yeah, queued forward and then was immediately engaged on Zhao Tzu, invested the flash. Jimian, wow, actually denied the flash and just barely sidestepped and managed to get out alive. If he hadn't done that, would have just certainly gone down. It's the Gore Drinker once again on the Jace, and something we haven't seen before, I don't think, is actually the tier on Gwen. You don't often see that, but perhaps thinks it's going to be, you know, very extended kind of fights in the side lane and just wants more mana for dealing with that Scion.
Yeah, it might be, as you said, sort of similar to the Veigar, just grab the tier and sit on it. I don't see her buying the Seraphs, at least early game.
Yeah, would be pretty surprised to see it upgraded before maybe third or fourth item, but could be something. I mean, I haven't seen it before, but perhaps a new meta. And Rest is forced away from this tower, at least for the time being. Is he going to get cancelled again? Ooh, almost.
Zhao having a huge impact sort of on these side lanes. Obviously falling a bit behind in the CS department, but has got a lot for his bot lane, for example. So, honestly, I think he's done good usage on this Lee Sin.
Yeah, probably a worthwhile trade, I think. Has fallen behind in CS, like you said, but hasn't snowballed to anything more.
As we see an engaged mid here, the Cocoon is landed on Jimmy, and he's getting extremely low. Will he go down? Repel away from WSL, and Gemini coming in doesn't hit the spear, so I don't think anything can become of this.
Slater once again in the right place at the right time is able to save Jimmy from yet another gank, although there was the flash invested. Jimmy has to be careful, I feel like, being on that mid wave.
Yeah, absolutely. There is that ward there as well. Lee Sin going in for the 1v2. Oh, doesn't quite get it, and you do have to question, like, it would have been pretty cool if he had made it, but is it worth the risk?
Yeah, perhaps not. Does end up going down, and it's picked up by Jimian, and is now just able to reset, kind of set everything back to normal. Now, CFO's game plan definitely has been disrupted a little bit, though, with that first dragon being picked up by Dewish team. It's not often that we see CFO be the ones to, pick up drags later. Rest.
WSL looking towards Rest. He doesn't have that invulnerable, and a nice flash cocoon shut down onto Elise. That's huge. Maybe look to get this tower as well.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the replay first. This was the mid lane fight initially. So Jimian was engaged on very early. Still does not have the does have the flash at this point. And is able to fight out. Honestly, just not a lot of damage between Zhao and WSL. I mean, both of them aren't particularly strong at this point. Jimmy manages to buy enough time for the boys to come back. And then I think Zhao, with having this ward already in the lane, he wanted to try to use it for something. But you have to feel that if Jimian's laning on this low health, that there are members nearby, right? Gets the heal from Nidalee. I think the E also cancels the W after, I want to say. Yeah, cancels the W, and Zhao ends up going down.
I have to think possibly that first instance, when WSL came in and it was a nice ward jump kick by Lee Sin, if it wasn't the Gore Drinker Jace, if it was that Eclipse that we sometimes see, he probably would have gone down. So that extra tankiness that you do get from the Gore Drinker, I do think saved him there, as we looked for CFO looking towards this Rift Herald.
gold remains pretty much even. TP comes in from Lacunai, so definitely wants to be a contest. We'll see if I match them for it. Probably want to try find some poke before it if they want to.
Could also look for the dragon here, which I don't think is such a bad idea.
It's going to be a 5v5 contest, I think.
Jiao2 looking, Jimmy landing the Q over the wall. Hook is landed onto Lacunai, but he goes down extremely slowly. They've traded him for the Herald. I don't believe they'll get anything else off this, but Rest is headed towards them.
Rest perhaps wants more, but is he going to go for the 1v3? I mean, doesn't have his W.
Does get engaged on, and he's just going down. A really, really risky way to go. You have to question the decision-making for that.
That was insanely greedy pathy. What did I just say? Insanely greedy pathing there from Rest, which, you know, with the W down is already risky enough, right? But the fact that you use W, hold on, that thought as Jimmy gets
engaged on. This is about the 4th time we've seen it. Gemini with a nice arrow. Oh, going in, Inho is going to go down as well. So we've seen them really try to get a lot onto Jimian. He survives almost every single time and now is constantly turning into kills for the team of CFO.
It's definitely nice there, I think, to trade those couple kills back. And the tower does go over, but it's pretty much all the gold goes to Jiao2. Can he still look for something in the side lane? I'm not sure he wins this down a level and also versus the Conqueror.
Yeah, we do see Jimian use all of his abilities, but Resonating Strike will miss from Jiao2. Ward hops away, looks like he'll be fine.
A very wise way to back away. Dragon is picked up here by CFOs. They find themselves with a slight lead. A lot of that gold is actually just up in the top lane. Rest still find themselves with a very big advantage. But let's take a look at this initial replay. So the curtain call comes out very early. It looks like Enhao and WSL, they're just kind of behind enemy lines, right? Very deep in with Sion dead as well. So there's just nowhere really to go. And they try to get out, but I'm honestly not too sure what they were looking for there.
It is questionable that the Jhin ult is used because CFO have priority mid, right? So you've used the Jhin ult to commit to clearing a wave. Meanwhile, even further up in the other side's jungle, you've just gone for an engagement. So it is questionable, maybe not on the same page here.
And Jimian has found himself with a very big lead, right? Which is, it's got to feel good. You were the kind of target of a lot of this early game pressure here from Dewish team, but still finding yourself with a very massive lead. And it's important because Jiao2 did have so much impact on the map early on, but now it's kind of Jimian's time to shine, right? Is up 50 CS, also a level advantage for him. And now completes the second item, which is really where your damage is going to come from.
And with it being a Jhin 80 carry too, with this poke comp and the Jace's ability to poke, you aren't really going to see the same amount of lifesteal that we've seen to sort of counter that comp. So really, him being able to maintain sort of his foothold in this game, even though he's received so many ganks and so much pressure, is going to have a huge impact, I feel, against Peppero's ability to sort of position in this game and find access to these fights.
It is pretty hard, I think, to be a Jhin in this game. It's kind of surprising that he picked it. I think just wanted probably the lane pressure. But at the same time, playing up against the Nautilus and the Gwen is pretty annoying. It actually is the Seraphs, or rather the Archangel, completed here for Rest. So not something we've seen before on the Gwen.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it sort of pans out. It is interesting. I guess it just, you get a bit more survivability, right? And nice flash shockwave, but shock blast, but it didn't quite hit because of the heal. Well, it did hit, sorry, but didn't quite kill.
It's very, very close. I'm actually surprised that the heal came out in time.
Yeah, good foresight there by Peppero. We are looking to try clear this mid wave as Shun sort of hits away at it.
Kunai is so tanky up against all these kind of
Yeah, nice initiation here onto Gemini. Gemini does go down. Repel right next to Jimian, who also follows. We see Enho about to go down. Lacune as well. That is just a 4-for-1 trade. Peppero arrives too late.
And Peppero is going to get forced off this tower, I think. Wow. He's just dead.
Nice buffer of the knockback by Jace there.
And Jimian, he's kind of taking over. I mean, I have to say that initial engage from Dewish team was actually good, but the problem is that they end up in a corridor, and you see what happens up against the Gwen and the Jace when that happens, right? Just so much AoE coming out from them. And now Jimian as well and truly outscaled Jiao2, right? Just look at the damage difference in that fight, and I think CFO's solo lane is starting to put on a bit of a clinic. But let's have a look at this. So I think initial engage looks good. Probably should have looked to focus Jimian, but they landed all the CC on a Gemini. And then after this, watch Rest, right? Just hitting, what, 3 targets with his ult pretty much constantly. Jimian as well just gets a free hit with now all the threat gone. Rest Almost goes down. I honestly think if Dewish team had coordinated that maybe a little bit better, if the cocoon is placed just a tiny bit differently and they killed Jimian rather than Gemini, the fight actually could be completely different.
Yeah, and importantly, they did not have Jin there as well. We saw him get poked out, expend that heal to survive, and then back to base. So even if he was able to be in that as well, might have seen a different story. But what's happened, and now we're looking at player gold. Jimian really, really far ahead, closely followed by Rest and Shun. So top 3, all on the side of CFO, and you have to feel like they've kind of just outscaled now. 5k gold lead in total. Solar Flare is used onto Gemini, but missed.
Shun is kind of a surprising one as well, right? Feels like he hasn't had to do a whole lot, but finds himself with a significant lead.
And we do see Unstoppable onto Shun. He is caught. Cleanse flashes away. Chain of Corruption lands onto Enho as Rest just comes in and sort of annihilates him. Needlework used to slow Sion. Does get onto him. Used again. Hook does land and Rest is just eliminating him.
Yeah, Rest does so much damage here. The one that really has to deal with the tanks. I think with these kills, you honestly turn towards Baron, right? WSL has been chunked out, and CFO, they have quite a bit of Baron DPS. No one's really caring about the Dragon. Will they look for a pick or just start up the Baron? I think they're just going to start it up.
Does look that way. You do have, even though you have this poke Varus, you got a lot of damage out of the Jace and out of the Gwen, so it does help a lot. Jiao2 positioning like he wants to try and stop it. Curtain Call is expended.
Jiao2, I don't think he can really do anything here. Ooh.
Flash hooked and he'll be not long for this world. WSL also tries to steal and he'll go down too. I feel like they can just snowball this. They'll probably take the Dragon first, but they could also opt to just try and take some towers.
Yeah, I actually want to see the gold graph because I feel like this is just snowballed out of control out of nowhere. So initially, Shun's pushed up on mid wave, but has both sums currently, is engaged on by the Scion, actually just space glides out of there and then is engaged on, burns them both. And that's a lot of the cooldowns already gone, right? So off the back of this, Dewish team just kind of have to run. The Kunai without the ult as well is just kind of, you know, left alone, and there's not much he can do to actually escape, and Rest here does so much damage with these ultis.
Really far ahead here on the side of CFO now, and to what you said before too, it felt like Dewish team really had a good opportunity. They were finding what they needed to find, and then out of nowhere it's ballooned to a 10k gold lead. Yeah,
it just kind of exploded out of nowhere. I think Dewish team really just were competitive until they weren't, and I think a lot of that was just around that mid fight, right, where you had the engage and it just wasn't enough. I mean, yeah, take a look at the gold difference. It was very close for a very long time, but now CFO find themselves with that 10,000 gold lead at only 24 minutes. They don't have the dragons that they normally do, only 2 dragons here at 24 minutes. But it's very difficult, I feel like, to play up against a poke comp when you do fall behind, especially if you don't have any lifesteal, right? You just end up getting forced off your towers eventually. Now, Jimian, he doesn't have flash. Jiaosu's not in the bush. Well, is actually showing there.
We've tried for about the 5th time to find a gank onto Jimian, and it has resulted the same way again. WSL does go down, and I don't see really what you can do anymore as Dewish team. Like, all of their champions are quite early game focused. You know, Lee Sin, Elise, that's where they really excel. Pepero does have a bit of scaling, but again, against the poke comp, what can he really achieve? Lacuna is just getting absolutely demolished by Rest as the matchup does go. As we do also see Rest has finished the Void Staff, so it's going to be even more problematic. Massive Spear does land here onto Enho, followed by a Shock Blast. He hasn't even had anyone on the screen, he's lost half his health.
Yeah, CFO, they're grouping in one lane. Need someone to go Baron the mid wave. But I think you're right, Dewish team, they just don't have a lot of options here. There should be at least 2 inhibs falling, and CFO could perhaps push for even more off that.
Yeah, mid inhib tower does go down.
Yeah, can they break bot? I think they should be able to. They still have 30 seconds on this Baron. I think they can just push for more. They have to feel so strong in these fights here. Perhaps respecting the engage. Ooh.
Yeah, botched engage there onto Shun, but Shun does pick up the kill there on Jiao2, as we see Chain of Corruption lands onto Lacune. He does land a massive stun, but it's just too little too late. He will go down to Shun on Varus, knocks away the passive of Sion, and I believe we're going to see the end of the game here.
Yeah, Jimmy, and can he kite out Pepero? I think he can.
Yeah, Pepero trying to get it, just to sort of kill at the end here, but Rest is going to chase him down. Snip, snip, and down goes Jin as well.
Yeah, and despite how close the game was for so long a time, it's actually only 2 minutes later that CFO are going to end up picking this win up over Dewish team in only 27 minutes here. And I mean, it's just crazy because the first time these teams faced, it was like 24-6. It doesn't even look that different here, but honestly, Dewish team, I feel like, played the first 10 minutes pretty well. But really just fell apart after that mid-fight. And admittedly, the way the comps are, once a team falls behind, you're really not going to get back into it, right? It's two teams that need the snowball early. And so once you fall behind, you just don't have a lot of options back into the game.
Absolutely. And I feel like in terms of who really let them not fall behind was Jimmy. And he received so much pressure. Was able to survive all of it, essentially. There was one sort of fight down bot lane, which was where we first saw Dewish team gain a lead. But after that, they poured it all into Jimmy, and he survived every single gank. Some of them turned around to them getting double kills, and it just snowballed from there. They were getting objectives, Rift Heralds, towers, more kills onto Jimmy, and I don't know, it just snowballed out of control really, really quickly. From a position, it looked like Dewish team were like going to win, if not, you know, take it to a long game.
Yeah, it really is one of those things where once it reaches that point where one team takes a lead, they can just take everything all at once. And it was quite close, I feel like, to Dewish team being the ones to do that